in a row with very late drama. The boos are for the referee from the home fans. Ipswich were 1-0 up through Leif Davis's volley. They thought they should have had a penalty. They didn't get it. Calvin Phillips was then sent off before Jordan Ayew's excellent last minute, last gasp equaliser, and picked the bones out of that. So much to talk about. Leicester have another Premier League point on the road, and this one will feel like a victory given how late the goal came. Full time at Portman Road. Ipswich 1, Leicester 1.
Thank you very much, Chris. Yes, and more late drama on the road involving Leicester City. Not sure we can do it here in the studio, Jerry, week in, week out. Leicester nearly won that game. They were 1-0 down in the 94th minute. Could have won it in the end. In the end, it is just a point. Simon, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's obviously a fantastic result in the end in terms of how late they left it, and could have possibly won it later on after that opportunity. The game really hinged on the sending off Calvin Phillips. Ipswich had got in front from a good goal from their perspective, probably a poor goal from Leicester's perspective. And really, Leicester didn't really threaten too much, didn't create too many opportunities. That Ipswich then go down to 10 men, and it gave Leicester the impetus, and the momentum changed, and the substitutions worked really well. Ayew had that opportunity, which I think Burgess cleared off the line. Kept on going, showed a lot of spirit about what they're looking to do. And then one real fantastic bit of play, probably the best bit of play all the game, where Samari gets down the left-hand side and finds a ball into Ayew in the box, takes a great first touch, finds Jamie Vardy, who plays a lovely 1-2, and it's a great finish. And once that goal went in, it looked like Leicester could go and win it. And they had a few half opportunities, but for a game that looked like it was going to disappear, it's a decent point in the end. But everybody would be disappointed because 3 points is what they wanted.
Yeah, that is the voice of Simon Grayson. He sits alongside Jerry Taggart here on the sofa. Matt Elliott will remain with us in commentary position at Portman Road. But Jerry, are you happy with the point? Are you disappointed it's 2 points dropped? Well, you have 94th minute, 1-0 down.
Yeah.
You've got to be happy with the point, but then Leicester really could have won it.
Yeah, I think, I mentioned at half-time, first of all, about the physicality that Ipswich have brought to the game today, in particular Calvin Phillips. And maybe that physicality was Ipswich's undoing in the end, because he gets the second yellow for being, over physical in a challenge with Ricardo Pereira, and rightly gets a second yellow card. And then obviously the advantage then turns to Leicester. And the one thing about Leicester we've seen this season is that they're never out of the game. They go all the way till the end. And yet again, they have done. Yes, there's a man sent off and you're expecting them to pile the pressure on. But, Larry's already spoke about the goal. To pull off a piece of play when the pressures are that high, you can almost feel the tension here in the studio, what's going off at the stadium. And for them to be that composed and to pull that off, yes, it's first Samari, but then, first of all, a great piece of skill from Jordan Ayew to take the ball in a stride when it's slightly played behind him. An unbelievable touch from Jamie Vardy with a 1-2 from Ayew, and then obviously the finish. So, yeah, listen, am I disappointed? I'd have to say no, but I'm not. Yes, you go there in the game, you think, yeah, we can beat these. But the way the game panned out and the way to finish yet again, I mean, I'm looking at my heart rate on my watch here, and it's going off the scale.
It was higher than when you played, anyway.
And people said I didn't have a heart when I played. But yeah, listen, you got to take it when it comes your way, and so I would say that's a point gain. So.
I think what you've got to do as well, you've got to give credit to the manager giving the substitutions the opportunity to get some out of the game, but the spirit that Leicester showed, they never gave up. What's the old saying? Foxes never quit. Mm-hmm. And they kept going. If you couple that into Ipswich's lack of winning football matches this year, they've not been able to do it. So that transcended a little bit of nervousness onto the pitch as well as Leicester's never say die attitude. So overall, that point could be crucial come the end of the season. We said before the game, if you can't win the game, make sure you don't get beat, and that's what's happened.
Yeah, Matt Elliott, you were there, you've witnessed it. live in person, I'm sure your heart rate was even higher than ours in the studio. And what are your initial thoughts as the dust is settling on where you stand with whether that's a good point or 2 points dropped or a very good point?
Yeah, all things considered, I mean, you're 1-0 down and scoring so late on, that brings an extra air of positivity about the result, doesn't it? And the outcome. But I think all said and done, it's a decent point. It could prove huge in the long run, couldn't it? In terms of the points difference, 6-pointer literally, the swing that could have occurred if Ipswich had gone on to win that game. So we'll know more as the season wears on. But even now, a draw away from home against any team is acceptable, isn't it? And you can look into the finer details of it, and there's plenty to look into from Steve Cooper's point of view. But the most important factor is the outcome of your results, whether that be a win, draw or loss, and that's what affects you most. So, as the boys have mentioned there, and Simon in particular, about the team spirit of Leicester, I think that's evident. That has been even last season, really, because I think Leicester was sort of considered, a class ahead compared to most clubs in terms of the squad, etc., the manager and everything. But when they had to, their character was questioned, wasn't it, for a while? But they came strong through at the end, and then Steve Cooper has taken that on, if maybe to another level in that respect, because they dig in, they hang in, don't they? And never say die sort of spirit. It doesn't always come across that way when you're watching a game. You're thinking, I don't know quite how Leicester keep staying in fixtures, whatever. But then they come up with the goods at one stage or another to a level, and the game turned in the last sort of 20 minutes or so, didn't it? And I'm including the extra time with that as well. And 8 minutes, you thought, maybe. I wasn't particularly confident initially because Ipswich looked relatively comfortable, but all of a sudden they just went a little bit, and Leicester nearly scored before, and Burgess came and cleared it off the line. You thought, maybe not their day. Not this time again, surely after Southampton. But Ayew, cool as a cucumber, wasn't he? And the lads have described the goal. That was excellent. Shows what Leicester are capable of. I just don't see it often enough. But the supporters, they'd have gone from being downright gloomy and miserable if they'd lost that game. And then that one goal has sent them into, not euphoria, but they are up and bouncing and chanting and singing, and they'll bounce all the way home as well after just 1 point. So that shows you how positive it is.
Matty, when you're inside the ground there at Portman Road, then could you hear the nervousness creeping into the Ipswich team? They were sort of not knowing how to win all season. How were their supporters? And under that pressure, obviously the buckled did the team, but was there nervousness within the crowd and the stands?
Do you know what? To be fair, Simon, not considering the importance and the magnitude of a win for them, you would think so, wouldn't you? Because what's that? 10 games. That was their 10th game, and if they'd won that, but they obviously haven't. But they looked quite. I wouldn't say go as far as say in control, but obviously I'm of Leicester orientation, and I want Leicester to go on and play well and win the game. But they looked comfortable to me, Ipswich. Really, they didn't look like a team who hadn't won all season. And when they took the lead with that quality finish from Davis, I didn't see too much of a response really from Leicester either. It wasn't like they were like, oh my God, we're in front, we've got a chance of winning this game. All batten down the hatches and all just sit deep. They tried to be a little bit proactive, and not a lot changed until the latter stages. The 10 Phillips going off, even then initially, it wasn't right, that's it. Leicester are going to surge forward all the time. But it just slowly wore them down. And when Leicester got a couple of opportunities, you could see that their energy levels were dwindling more than their confidence. I felt so. And I thought the Leicester fans picked up though. That was I think they spurred the substitutions. You're right to mention. But listen, I think any manager would have made a change. Something had to happen because there wasn't a lot occurring. But I could see the sense in the substitutions, and obviously made a big difference as well. And that picked up the fans as well. And here at Portman Road, the away fans are right up against the pitch, concentrated in a under a roof, so the noise sort of echoes, and the home team can feel the effect of the away team supporters, if you get my drift. And I think that spurred Leicester on, a combination of things really. But I wouldn't say Ipswich capitulated, but they didn't help themselves late on.
Yeah, and again, when you look back at that additional time, Jerry, since the winner,
Yeah.
I'm thinking there was 3 or 4. Jordan Ayew had 2 efforts, didn't he, in the space of a few seconds.
Yeah.
Bouba Samari had a shot that just went over. Fatawi had a chance with a cross, wasn't quite there. Wout Fass even had a half chance. In 4 minutes, there was enough opportunities that Leicester even could have won that.
Yeah, and that just shows you, going back to the actual goal itself, you know, there was a lot of opportunities, but it was so intense, the pressure in there. It was like a cauldron that last 8 minutes or so, and even when Leicester, you know, equalised, and then you're thinking, going, can we get the winner? And you could say that some of the chances that they had, even though there were more half chances, just lacked that little bit of composure, that little bit of quality, that at the right moment. So in fairness, you know, Ipswich, and when you go down to 10 men, Larry will tell you this better now, it's especially when you've got a lead to defend as well, and you're down to 10 men. You know, it's very, very difficult for the attacking team with 11 players on the pitch to break that down, because your extra man invariably is at the back, because they'll always take a forward player off and replace that with either a midfielder or an extra defender to just try and shore things up. So you're left with 2 centre halves marking nobody, basically. So it becomes extra difficult to try and break that down. So the actual move itself that led to the goal, first and foremost, Bouba Samari. Unbelievable play from him. First to get back on a potential counter-attack, dispossess Morsy, then run down the side, the left-hand side, bundle off another defender coming across, and then play a nice, neat pass into the path of Jordan Ayew, who then keeps his cool, Vardy keeps his cool, and then the finish. So that in itself was an unbelievable bit of play for me. So you can take away the half chances and this and that and other, because it's a really, really intense environment in there, and everybody on the pitch is scrambling either one way or the other, and it just becomes manic.
I think that with Leicester scoring that late on the equaliser, it's had a big effect on both teams, obviously. Ipswich have now conceded 2 late goals consecutive weekends, which has cost them valuable points. Leicester, on the other hand, keep getting goals in the last few minutes of games, which you don't want to keep doing too regularly, but at least it shows you've got something about you, you've got a will to keep going. But I think the bigger picture for Steve will be that he still needs his team to play better. I think, if you look at it from a call like Dave watching the game, there's a lot of poor play at times, unnecessary mistakes, unnecessarily giving the ball away. Didn't create too many chances against I won't say an average Ipswich team, but you're not playing one of the top teams. So I think Steve will look at the bigger picture of this week going into the next game, thinking we need to be better. We can't give possession away too easily. We can't make sure opposition get chances, because they will punish you against the better teams. So it's a great result, and it will feel like a win today. Yeah. Even though it is only a point, mentally you will feel, coming off that pitch in the dressing room, supporters getting in the cars and going home on the buses or whatever, it will feel like a massive win and a massive kick in the teeth and elsewhere for Ipswich.
Yeah, and just going back to Larry's point, the goal is a great case in point of what Larry was on about. You know, it comes from a throw-in initially, and Leicester just switch off. They don't. The keeper kicks a ball out of play from a goal kick. Then they switch off, and Morsy receives the ball in midfield. Nobody near him. Clips a nice ball to the back post. Unbelievable finish, I have to say. You watch it again, but Leicester aren't switched on when the ball goes dead. And that is something that they have to pick up on going forward.
Yeah. Do you agree with Simon then, Matt, that those Leicester fans, as they were leaving, you'll have seen them and heard them singing that Jordan Ayew song again that we heard so loudly at St Mary's. They seem, like Simon says, very happy with that. Obviously, you're going to be. getting a last-minute equaliser, but against a team that are right down there, that haven't won a game all season, that again could be massive when you look back at it at the end of the season.
Yeah, ultimately, it doesn't. Instantly, it doesn't really matter about the manner of any positive result. But coming back, regardless of how well or not Leicester played today, coming back late on feels that moment, of joy, doesn't it, and excitement, and they get pleasure from the comeback and the inspiration that brings. But very much so, it will feel like a positive point at the moment, and any point away from home, as I said, probably is, isn't it? Unless it's a do or die situation. But I think at the same time, so initially they'll be happy with that. But when they reflect, and I'm sure Larry's touched on it, Steve Cooper in particular will look at that and say, right, okay, there's a good quality that we've got. It shows what we're capable of at times. Why aren't we producing moments of quality more often? Is it to do with the structure of the team? Maybe not necessarily that, but sometimes just improving, the regularity with which you provide a bit of class every now and then. But these fully fledged Premier League players, certainly most of the lads, and I don't think it'd be overly delighted with the general performance, and the supporters as well will analyse that. But everyone's reasonably happy if you're picking up points, though, aren't they? So what are they now? 10 points from 10. Ipswich 5 from 10. Yeah. So that 5 points is taking them 10 games to get 5 points, and Leicester are 5 points ahead. Now I know that can be wiped off quickly in a couple of results, but like you say, they've got some tough games coming up. So have Leicester as well. Most teams it comes to swing around about. But if Leicester was able to pick up a couple of results over the next 3 games or something, then all of a sudden there could be huge gaps. So all in all, much room for improvement, I would say. But you take what you can, and when you can in this Premier League as well, didn't you? Simon, can I just ask you one thing, as a seasoned campaigner manager?
Experienced.
Experienced, that's the one. Morsy, in the last few minutes, when Sumari nicked possession off him, I mean, would you? I see what he was trying to do. He was trying to sort of stretch play and go alone, wasn't he? But that's not his game, is it? I mean, it's slightly embarrassing, and you might say a little bit amateurish, whatever. But he'd have been better served, wouldn't he? Just sort of giving up the ghost and going, "Oh, sod it," and just kicking it out of play. And then his team could have squeezed up and regathered a little bit, rather than the ball being turned over. As a manager, would you be yelling at him to do that, or would you want him to try and hold it up?
Well, it's funny because when we were watching them breaking, I said to Jerry and Dan, I went, he's looking for a free kick here all day long. He's trying to take it up the pitch. He's waiting for somebody to touch him, and he's going to go down, kill a bit of time, and try to invite the free kick. He wasn't clever enough to get enough contact, because I think the referee was obviously clever and seen what he was looking to do, and obviously it ended up being a massive mistake from him. So fair play to Sumari, tracking him back, not being touching him too much and giving a stupid free kick away, which would have allowed Ipswich to get up the pitch, take a short free kick, and maybe get a throw in further down the pitch, and allowed no opportunity for Leicester to get that counter attack. So I can see what he was trying to do, and I could see it coming a mile off. But fair play to Sumari that he didn't touch him, gathered his thoughts, and he also pushed one of the other lads out the way as well when he broke down that left-hand side.
He'd been better off showing no shame whatsoever, though, wouldn't he, Morsy? Just, right, this is not happening, and just toe punt it out of play and then reset.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, Matt, and that's why we always get the sack sometimes. Players' decisions.
Even you, though.
Yeah, but as we've already said, Jerry, as you rightly said, it was so good from Bouba Soumaré, one of the substitutes. Casey McAteer looked really bright. Jordan Ayew got the goal as a substitute, of course. Yet again, we're seeing under Steve Cooper's management, substitutes doing really well this season.
Yeah, and we spoke about it, before the game, about, could one or two of the players that played at Man United on Wednesday night feel a bit aggrieved. He came into the conversation, but he was ready. when he went on, he was ready to show it and put in another performance. Now, moving forward, it's Man U next week. Will he get the tip of the wink? Because Larry's better served about this than me, really. But when you're a substitute and you come on the pitch, and especially when your team's, losing a game and you're being asked to run on a pitch and say, right, I need you to go on and make things happen for us to get back in this. It's not easy for a substitute, but you have to be ready to go from the second you walk on that pitch. And that's what Samari was. He was ready to go and try and make a difference. And by did he.
He will be 100% in Steve Cooper's thoughts for next weekend now. How he played on Wednesday night, how he affected the game today. Indeed, he probably didn't play like he can do. I thought he was probably average to say the least today. So at least he's affected the game, as the other subs have done as well. And now Steve will be thinking, do I look at these lads for the game next weekend because they've made an impression on me? The one thing as a player that you've learned from playing and then managing is that if you go on that pitch after coming on as a substitution and you don't make an impression, and sometimes you can't because of the game, how it develops, but if you go on and don't do anything, the one thing I can guarantee is you're not starting the next weekend. You be the positive player that comes on. You are in the manager, coach's thought process all week going into the game next weekend.
Pretty simple, isn't it?
It's not complicated, is it?
No, but that is the truth of the matter, and that's the one thing, because you do see subs coming on and they don't make impressions, and you're thinking there, even yourself watching it as a neutral or me as an ex-player or an ex-coach, I'm thinking, make something happen. Put yourself in the mind of the manager for the next game. And Samari's done that in the last 2 games. Firstly at Man United on Wednesday, and today coming on as a sub. So fair play to him. That's the questions that you ask of players when they're not in the team regularly. You have to show me, or you have to question me, question my decisions. Samari's done that.
Yeah, so then a week tomorrow, Matt, is another trip to Old Trafford. Obviously, it was in the Carabao Cup in the week, now to the Premier League on Sunday. Does Bouba Samari, is he in that starting 11, do you think, for that game a week tomorrow?
Well, as the boys have mentioned, certainly strongly in contention. Well, it's a good question, isn't it? There's arguments for and against. My main worry, I suppose, on previous experience, watching Samari is a little bit on the defensive side, like when the game's behind, balls played in behind him or whatever, because he's quite adaptable, isn't he, in terms of a midfielder, they're flexible, because he can play in advanced areas, but he can break from deep as well, and he can hold, alongside, say, Wink. So he has that capability. Sometimes for me, his awareness and his concentration, it doesn't seem to be there. That natural sort of defensive midfield instinct and tracking runners and urgency and discipline. But when he's switched on his game, he's impressive. Can't get away from that fact. I was looking at and I know it amplifies it, but I was looking at a highlights reel of his game against Man United at Old Trafford, and put a very strong case for himself to be in the mix. And it gives you something different, doesn't it? It gives you something different without a doubt. He's got that strength to burst away from players. We saw that. He can pick a pass. He's not enough of a goal threat, but you feel that there is the potential to be, to have that. But, he's not a young kid anymore, no longer a prospect. He's got to come and provide and produce, hasn't he? But I think if Steve Cooper's in a positive, brave mood, I think he plays, yeah.
It's an interesting one, Jerry, isn't it?
Well, again, if he's in a brave mood, and these are the questions the manager will have to be pondering all week moving into that game, because yes, he'll analyse this game, break it down, talk about the positives, the negatives, but then very, very quickly he will move on to what's going to happen next week, and the whole week will literally evolve around the build up to that game and and obviously a large part of that thought process is who starts in that game. And all you can do is, all you can do as a player is put yourself into the mind of the manager in his thought process and Samari has done that.
Simon, we'll let you have the final say of the day. A point gained in the end then for the Foxes?
Yeah, look, we said before the game, if you don't win it, the last thing you want to do is Ipswich win it, close the gap. I'm not quite sure how the other games went. Everton, Southampton might have been a draw, which again, if it has
Southampton won.
Oh, did they win? All right. So it could be a valuable point come the end of the season. You know what I mean? It's the worst thing was that if Ipswich had won and closed it, momentum and losing to a team that below us and never won all season would have been really difficult to take and accept as well. So again, leaving that pitch, leaving that stadium now, there'll be a lot of positive people around and the attitude will be good going into training. You lose that today, and whenever the players are back in tomorrow or Monday, whenever, there'll be a little bit of a negative feel around the place. The heads will be down a little bit. I think there'll be a bit of a spring in the step that they're ready to go to Old Trafford and put on a performance and finish this group of games on a positive manner before the international weekend. So yeah, a valuable point. Any point you can get is they're like gold dust at times.
Absolutely, especially when you get that equaliser in the 94th minute. Of course, we'll be back for that game at Old Trafford against Manchester United in just over a week's time. It is a 2 o'clock kickoff, is it? Yes. 2 o'clock. Thank you, Jerry.
Because I'm there.
Thank you. 2 o'clock kickoff. That means we'll be live from 1 p.m. Here with Matchday Live. Jerry will be there on co-commentary duty. Mark Albrighton will be one of the guests in the studio here. And conveniently, his podcast is available now to listen with Matt and Jerry in conversation with Mark Albrighton. And again, have a look out at some point early next year for Simon Grayson's appearance on Leicester's The Place podcast as well. Big thank you to Simon for coming in. Thanks to Jerry. Thanks to the birthday boy, Matt Elliott, for travelling down to Ipswich for us today in what has turned out to be a decent point for the Foxes in the end, who make it 10 points from their opening 10 games at the start of this season. Goodbye.